On the back of a week where a lot of the drama was talking about Tottenham Hotspur off the pitch, thankfully on Sunday afternoon we had 11 men willing to do their talking on it. This is your E-Spurs Podcast.
Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Come on, you Spurs! Tottenham, no one can stop.
Hello guys, welcome back for another hour of talking all things Tottenham Hotspur. Please don't forget you can subscribe to the show via iTunes or Acast and get every brand new episode direct as it's released. You can of course follow us across all the usual social media platforms. We are on Twitter and Instagram at E_Spurs. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/eSpurs page. We are also on YouTube, Pinterest and Tumblr, and for all of the links to all eSpurs platforms you can head to our brand new website of www.e-spurs.com. I'm delighted to say tonight we've got 3 guests rejoining us that have been on the eSpurs podcast previously. First up we have got public relations for football agents Ben Fairthorne joining us. Ben, how are you?
Hi Ricky, good to be back.
And good to have you back on, Ben. I'm delighted to say joining Ben tonight we have the Spurs blogger of Tottenham on my mind, Alan Fisher, joining us. Alan, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Thanks for inviting me back on the programme. Always good to talk Tottenham.
Always good to talk Tottenham, Alan, irregardless of transfers.
Yeah, well, that's what I do all the time. It's Tottenham on my mind for a reason.
There you go. Nice little plug there. And finally, last but not least, we have got Declan Wiseman back on the show. Declan from Last Word on Sport. Declan, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Pleasure, real pleasure. Well guys, like I say, it's been a busy week in terms of Tottenham, fair to say, off the pitch and on it. We're going to start with the game on Sunday. Let's come round first to you, Alan. Tell us, what did you make of that performance on Sunday?
I thought it was a decent start to the season. We started very slowly. In the end, we were cantering. Always helps if the opposition has a man sent off. Even better if it's because of something really stupid. But the point is that I think Spurs got into the groove gradually. Looked a bit rusty to start with. But by the middle, where we really took charge, it was the familiar Tottenham, comfortable with each other, comfortable in possession, didn't have to do a hell of a lot. And I thought the main difference between the teams was that we could inject a few moments of real class football. And 2 of those moments led to the 2 goals, 2 excellent goals that won us the game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And coming over to you, Ben, there's been a lot of speculation over Christian Eriksen's future previously. Like I say, he seems to be the shining talent for Spurs at the moment. Big player for Tottenham who had a massive impact on this one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just can only echo what was previously said. I thought, ultimately, yes, Spurs were a little bit rusty to start with, but the moments of brilliance shone through, which is, quite often what you get when newly promoted sides or sides down the lower end of the table. They will frustrate for so long, but it's the players with the real brilliance that could eventually unlock, and I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And coming around to you, Dec, I think it's fair to bring this in now. Kyle Walker-Peters, I think a lot of us were surprised by his inclusion. What have you made of his performance on Sunday?
I thought it was a very strong performance. Obviously, at the end of the match, he gets man of the match, which at first I thought was a little surprising because Eriksen had a very good game, and obviously without him, I'd say it would struggle to have won that match. But yeah, Walker-Peters, he came in even after Pochettino sort of has this U-turn where he says, "Oh, he's not ready. Is he ready? Yeah, he's ready. We'll put him into the first team." And yeah, he did well. I like to see him sort of get forward a little more, bomb forward a bit more like Walker would do back in the day. But I guess he's a young lad. He's still getting used to first team football, and he's just taking it easy. And I thought he looked comfortable in possession. He was really calm on the ball, and all in all, I think he deserved the man of the match in the end. It's an impressive display, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And coming around to you, Alan, Kyle Walker-Peters is the 8th Spurs Academy player to make his debut under Pochettino. That includes Onamar, Winks, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Edwards, Walks, Harrison and Lesniak. Tell us what you thought of his performance.
I thought he was very sound. What I particularly liked about him was from the very first, he was decisive. Very early on, he had a header, 50-50 ball. He didn't mess about with it, went straight for it. Then he won another tackle. Then he was in possession, and he didn't just wang it forward. He actually beat a player, a tiny bit risky, but he was looking for one of our men. And I think that it's that confidence and that assurance that will really stand him in good stead. That's what impressed me most. And I think it's what Pochettino does, as well as bring on the young talent, is that all the sides in the club play the same way or a similar way. It's about good habits. It's about a familiarity, so that when any of those players that you mentioned take a step up into the first team, it's not entirely alien territory. They're playing the same way, the same style, as they have done in teams further down the ladder in the club.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I mean, from my perspective, you look at that performance, it was such a mature performance for one so young, and he showed so much composure. I mean, it's funny, Pochettino, he seems to have this understated faith in his young players, which separates him, what you would say, apart from any other manager in the league. There is no fuss or no gamble in his eyes. It seems to be all about the mindset. Bringing it round to you, Ben, Pochettino, in his press conference, which Declan has alluded to, claimed that he didn't want to put pressure on the player by saying he was ready. Do you buy that? Do you think Spurs should maybe have had another right back in place before him?
No, I'm not sure they should. I think he did look very mature. I think he looked very competent. And there's no point going to, spend 10, 15 million pounds on a right back, on a player that actually might not have the natural talent of him. So no, I think at some time, you've got to say if you're good enough, you're old enough. I mean, it was very much the mentality Fergie had. And, he didn't do too badly over the years, did he?
No, he didn't. No. And like I say, we're seeing it, aren't we, Ben, that Pochettino, as I've just said, he has this kind of trust in youth. He's prepared to give the youngsters an opportunity.
Or is it that he won't differ away from, or is it that his chairman says, I'm not going to give you what you want?
What do you think, Ben, in your opinion?
I think it's probably a mixture of the two.
Okay. We're definitely going to come on to that very, very soon. We're going to talk about Tottenham Hotspur's wage structure. Bringing it back round to the game, back round to you, Declan. Dele Alli. Now, a lot of people were commenting on that game saying he's quiet, he's missing. But what I love about Dele Alli is he seems to be one of these kind of players that, irregardless of the kind of game he's having, he seems to have an impact on games. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, well, he had a definite impact. He was a man that, well, obviously he didn't intentionally get Shelby sent off, but he riled him enough to make him do that stupid act, and afterwards he showed him how he could play football and score the goal. So I think and the goal was a fine goal indeed, and I feel that some players can't always be in the game. I mean, even Christian Eriksen, he's not always controlling the game. He sometimes sits back, he sometimes is not even on the ball. But if you've got that player who's capable of executing the skill, or if with Dele Alli, he can pop up, make those forward runs into the box. You might not, about 8 times out of 10, he might not even make that run. But when he does make that run, and the centre back's not tracking him, well, he's going to end up scoring a goal because the centre back's already watching Harry Kane in the box. So I feel Dele Alli is a very important player for us. Yeah,
he most certainly is. And bringing it round to you, Alan. I mean, with regards to Dele Alli, he seems to got a lot of stick from Newcastle fans, and we've seen it a lot now where games away from home is that supporters do seem to kind of jump on him. Do you understand that? I mean, he seems to be, like, say, a young English talent with, a big reputation now, which is growing kind of game by game. Can you understand that?
Well, you can understand it in 2 ways. One is that he's very spiky, and if players on the pitch try to wind him up, then the home crowds, when we play away, are certainly going to join in that enterprise. Of course, he is very much the sort of player that we want at Tottenham in terms of that attitude. In the past, perhaps we've lacked a whole team of players with that sort of attitude. And that those opposition fans are having a go at him, thinking, well, I wish he was in our team. The other thing is that it seems to me, as an old bloke who's greying and whinging on the terraces with my old scarf and rattle. There is a thing about knocking talent these days, and we got a lot of that over the last 2 seasons. We've got a young English team, a young team with a lot of top quality England players in them, playing fantastic football, and yet people wishing terrible things on those young players, especially when they get into the England team. Without digressing too much, of course, now the world has decided that Dyer is the one who everybody has to have a go at. And I'm afraid that is something I just don't get. We're always moaning that we haven't got talent, and then when talent comes along, we slag them off mercilessly. Don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem this kind of, I hate to say it, media agenda out there to kind of force English players to fail rather than kind of hail them as like, okay.
Well, it's the media, but it's also the fans. The fans are doing it as well, and I think that there is something about a negativity, a critical approach that many people have these days when it comes to football. And again, without developing this too much, I think, although I'm being facetious about my age, I think that is an attitude that fans of different generations didn't bring to the game. I used to watch the top opposition players and swear under my breath when they did well against us. But you always used to think, oh, goodness me, I wish he played for us.
What do you think, Ben, coming around to you? Do you think he's getting an unwarranted reputation?
Look, he's had a couple of naughty challenges in his career. And I think that probably hasn't helped. But I actually think often, especially in the current game, that boos or jeers from opposition fans is actually probably one of the biggest compliments you can get. I've seen it with the world's best week in, week out at various stadiums, and we are bad for it in England. You go back to. The Bernabeu on their feet at Ronaldinho for Barcelona. You're never going to get that. You're never going to get Arsenal fans on their feet at an astonishing Dele Alli performance. It's just not the way that we're bred in England. But I actually think that actually the jeers and the boos is actually a sort of a form of flattery, to be honest, and it means that people fear him and he's doing well. But like I say, I think a couple of those suspect challenges in his career have probably not helped that cause either.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, he's such a young player as well. His reputation is growing. I mean, like I say, we want it to all be positive, but I think the thing out there is, I mean, maybe because of, like I say, the reputation he is getting, there is that fear because he is that good. That's why he gets this from opposition fans. But, I mean, who knows? But one player also that we have touched upon very briefly, Christian Eriksen, coming round to you, Dec. I mean, he's now recorded 12 assists in 2017, more than any other player in Europe's top 5 leagues. I mean, Tottenham fans will keep saying it. He is one of the most underrated players in the whole of Europe. And the thing is now, he looks like he's getting even better.
Yeah, he's such a crucial player for us, like I mentioned before. He's probably the one player at the club who truly can sort of pull out that perfect ball. I mean, against going back to Newcastle, the assist for the Dele Alli goal, that same assist I've seen him do at least 5 or 6 times. He just knows how to get that chip just right. Edge of the box, Dele Alli sort of mid to back post. Yeah, and just finds him perfectly. And it's those balls as well. Like in the FA Cup semi-final, obviously that's a bit of it was a sad day. But some of the I think that was another ball from Eriksen to Dele Alli, and that was absolutely on a plate, pinpoint. And it's just that kind of accuracy of pass, or sometimes it's his goals as well. He can score goals, he can create goals. But and also I think another key part of this game, which also is underrated, is the amount of running he does. I think there's some stats somewhere, something to do with last season, and he covered a lot of miles. So I think that's the key part of the whole Tottenham team. We've got players who not only can actually play football and create these special moments, but can keep running throughout the whole game. And it's no surprise that we often, get a late goal to, seal the game.
Yeah, I mean, coming over to you there, Alan, the dead ball delivery at times is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's exactly what Declan said. It's that the precision of that pass. If he had a fault over the last couple of seasons, it was that perhaps he didn't convert some of those passes into goal-scoring opportunities for other players. But that's really become a trademark, where he's under pressure and it's almost impossible to defend against the ball with that sort of angle and that sort of dip. It is an absolutely precious skill, and he is becoming a top quality midfielder who stands comparison with most midfielders in Europe.
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, just going on, guys, talking about the second goal itself, Ben Davies, coming over to you, Ben. I mean, he's really had to step up to the plate now following Danny Rose's comments, which we are going to come on to. Ben Davies, for you, is he now putting himself out there as a recognised left-back in your opinion?
No.
Okay.
If you want me to be blunt. And I have a real... let me be clear. I have a real sort of affiliation with Tottenham. In the Harry Redknapp years, for 2-3 years, I spent 2-3 days a week over in Chigwell with the players, with the fans. I know what it means to the fans, and that's why I actually really want to see Tottenham do well. I do have slight issues with the hierarchy, but I know what it means to the fans. I was pretty much every home game for 3 years, even though they're not the team I supported as a boy. So I do want you to do well. But do I think Ben Davies is a good enough left-back for a team that wants to win the Premier League and make roads in the Champions League? No, I don't.
Dec, what do you make of that? Would you agree with that? I mean, what I will say in defence of Ben's comments is that I feel like we are kind of devoid of pace in the side, and that's not, like I say, Ben Davies, I think defensively he has come on remarkably. But can you understand those comments?
Yeah, I can definitely understand some of those comments. I mean, I describe Davies as he's solid but uninspiring. Danny Rose is a superior left back. As you mentioned, we do have a lack of pace, but also it's that pace on the wing as well. As you know, we often play with wing backs, and they are the key. They're the only wide players on the pitch, and I think Davies has come on quite a lot, and I feel that the more games that he does play, he will start to develop, and he will develop his own sort of style, and he will bring something different that maybe Rose can't bring. But yeah, I just don't feel defensively. Yeah, he's solid, but on the attack, I feel that sometimes, well, he has got 2 goals in the last 2 Premier League games, but yeah, I feel that maybe if he keeps getting those positions, then maybe he can sort of contribute a bit more. But yeah, that's the only part of the game I sort of find fault with him. It's just in that final third, he doesn't really have the same quality or the same sort of attacking intent as Rose does.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just interject with Ben Davies, because I think I may have been a bit blunt. I certainly think he has a part to play at the club, and I certainly think he'll be a fine squad player. Let's just hypothesise that Spurs have PSG away on a Wednesday, and you've got West Brom at home on the Sunday. Great, go and play Ben Davies, so your first choice left back, if that be Danny Rose or anyone else, is fresh for the big European game. Play him in the Carling Cup, play him in the early rounds of the FA Cup. I could still see Ben Davies getting 20 games a season at Spurs. So I didn't want to sound like I think he's not a good player. I think he's just use the word steady, and I think he is a real steady Eddie. Yeah. And he'll do a job for you. But in Europe now, certainly the attacking aspect of the fullbacks is so important. And if you look, historically, the teams that won the Champions League the last 5 to 10 years, they've all had world-class fullbacks.
Yeah. Coming around to you, Alan, just very quickly, I don't want to obviously be too negative on it, but what do you make of that? Would you agree with that, Ben Davies? I mean, we are devoid of pace. I think I've said that already tonight, but I feel like that way on the side at the moment.
I think Davies is a decent player, and I'd be really happy with him. I'm happy enough when he plays, and if you'd asked me this over the last 10, 15 years, would I be happy with Ben Davies? I would have been delighted, except we've seen what Danny Rose can do.
Yep.
And I think Rose over the last couple of seasons has been little short of phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think he's been tenacious at the back, because we talk about pace going forward, but that pace at the back is very handy if we're putting players forward, if we need somebody to chase back. And his touch in the box, the positions that he takes up, coming off, making those diagonal runs out wide. Not only is he a fine player, but that skill is essential to Pochettino's Spurs. And I'd be very reluctant to get rid of Danny Rose.
Okay, well, like I said, we're going to talk about Danny Rose's comments shortly, but what I do want to say on the fullback situation is that, I mean, bearing in mind, coming to you, Dec, Tottenham went into a season worrying about their fullbacks. One scores, the other gets man of the match on his debut. I mean, it is a funny old game, isn't it? That wouldn't be kind of Tottenham-like.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a strange one, really. But, yeah, I feel like getting Walker Peters, giving him that game was very important, sort of just getting him in there. I think whether or not Pochettino was maybe just protecting him when he made his comment about saying he's not ready, I'm not sure. But, yeah, in Davis and Walker Peters, we have got some decent fullbacks, Trippier too. I just felt like we could do with probably another senior fullback in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But then, as Ben mentioned earlier, I mean, it is going to be another 10 to 15 million at the moment. We've signed no players, so where's the priority? Is it at fullback? I'm not sure.
Yeah, interesting. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, what I will say is after the game, Pochettino, he said Kyle Walker's in his speech. He was so proud. He sees how the team is. The team love to stay together. It was a fantastic moment, and I'm sure it'll be one he remembers forever. So again, Pochettino trying to play amongst the kind of case that Tottenham Hotspur still have that fantastic team spirit, irregardless what is going on outside of the club. Guys, we'll bring it on then. Let's talk about the comments from Danny Rose. So if we remind ourselves, it does seem a while back, and I don't want to kind of harp on about them because, like I say, we got the win on Sunday, an important win to get Tottenham off and running. But Danny Rose's comments, I believe it was now last Tuesday, where interview came out. I think a lot of people were surprised. Bearing in mind, Tottenham over the years now seems to be quite a private club, difficult to kind of get much out of. But Ben, coming over to you first, I know you've in the past expressed your, I want to say dissatisfaction, but you've stressed your concerns about Tottenham's wage structure. Was you surprised that Danny Rose went public the way he did?
Let's actually look at the interview first of all. That was not a club-approved interview.
No.
And that was a big sit-down with a national journalist. That was not off-the-cuff comments. Interviews like that don't just happen. They do not just happen. That was strategically arranged by representatives to get the point out there. And that would have either been A, to force a move, or B, to negotiate a better deal. So, okay, now on to Spurs' wage structure. I think, as in any industry, you've got to look how you're comparatively paid. So I sort of read some comments this week on Twitter, 60 grand a week, is that not enough for him? It's irrelevant whether he earns 60 quid a week or 60 grand a week. The point is you should be comparatively paid, whatever industry you're in. Now, he's going to look at fullbacks in the league, because similar to the Klein-Walker situation, Walker was 4 or 5 times the player what Klein was, or Klein is rather, and Klein was getting double his wages. Now, that doesn't make sense. So, look, let's forget that football's got out of hand with wages. That ship sailed a long time ago. Let's forget about that. It is obscene, but the point is, Danny Rose is a top 2 left back in the Premiership. He's a top 5 fullback in the league at a top 4 club. He can expect to be paid 120, 130 a week. That is the going rate. Whether Spurs or Levy like that or not, that is the going rate. So if that is the going rate, he has got every right to expect to earn that.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I'd say thank you for your comments on that. And coming round to you, Alan, from a fan perspective, and which we both are, I mean, I've got to be honest with you, I was completely gobsmacked that Rose went and done that interview. You look at the camaraderie amongst Tottenham, the dressing room, a very knit, tight group. Everybody seems to get on with each other. I mean, you think, like I say, Pochettino has those players so very much under his control. I don't disagree with some of the sentiments he says in the quote. It's the case of how he went and done it and to which newspaper he went and done it to. What's your thoughts on it, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy that he went to the Sun. I'm not happy that he went to any paper, but,
no,
you know, it have to be the Sun. It's interesting to hear from Ben, who knows that about how the system works, which confirms that, you know, Danny, this was something that Danny and his agent wanted to say and say it in public. I can't blame players for wanting to be paid somewhere near the going rate. I don't think it was bright of him to criticise the fans, who have been very good to him. I know a few people weren't a few seasons ago, and I think there was an incident at the Arsenal where his mum was there, if I remember rightly, where he made that mistake on the halfway line, and I think things were said that his mum heard. But mostly the fans have been extremely warm to him. And I think in the interview, he came over as very self-absorbed, a sense of distance between himself and the fans. And I think that's the thing that really gets modern players, modern fans about the modern players. Look, you know, we understand they earn a lot more than us. But partly, though, of course, what got people going was that he touched on the vulnerabilities that we've all felt about the club for the last 2 seasons. That our self-imposed wage structure, I admire Levy for doing it. The fact is that it does not make us competitive. And it felt for a time as though what Rose was saying could indicate that the floodgates are open, although happily that does not appear to be the case now.
No, and I mean, coming round to you, Dec, I mean, my question is, when I look back at some of the actual quotes he makes, he does say that, look, from his perspective, time is running out, he wants to win trophies, he doesn't want to play football for 15 years and not have one trophy or no medal. Now, when you consider the fact that 22nd of September, he signed a new 5-year deal with the club, and at that time he said that everyone knows that I feel the club is going in the right direction, I'm over the moon, that I'm going to stay here till I'm an old man. So that was 22nd of September 2016. Fast forward, what are we, 9 months on? You'd argue what in his mind has changed.
Yeah, it's a strange one, really. Can it really be a new, improved contract? He's obviously very recently signed a contract, so you think, well, what's left? What's the other motive? Is it truly because? I guess it truly is because he wants to win something, and for that to happen, he feels that there does need to be new signings. Well, I think that is a fair comment. I think we all
feel that, don't we, as fans? We all feel that, Dec. We all feel that we need to have signings in this squad still. And Pochettino has said that as well. He wants to have that investment in the squad. Yeah,
I think we need just that couple 3 or 4 players, those 3 or 4 quality players, I might add, that can actually not only just contribute to the first team, but actually create a very competitive squad. That all winning teams always have, you know, a top squad. They always have those players on the bench that come off the bench and they can turn games, and that's what we need at the moment, I think.
Yeah. Bringing it back around to you, Ben, I know we won't spend too much longer on this, but the Sun ran with the line that he was given a hero's welcome in the dressing room and applauded. Can you quite believe that?
Look, I think you probably have to take it to a degree with a pinch of salt. That will certainly never be proved one way or another. Dave Kidd, who done the interview, has been very, very close with Danny Rose for a long time, and it's possible some information was fed back, but that's no more than conjecture. So you know that is just guessing. But going back to his comments, one thing that I certainly didn't like. Fair enough, you know, talk about the aspirations and adding players, talk about being underpaid, but I thought the Googling line was actually rude and insulting. Yep. Because, you know, that there's been plenty of players down the years, not just for Tottenham, but for a lot of major Premiership clubs that, we didn't have a clue really who they were when they arrived. They went on to be world beaters. You know, who knew of Nicolas Anelka, really, 18-year-old, you know, joining Arsenal as an example. Who knew of Patrick Vieira? You know, who even knew of the few of the current Tottenham
Well,
crop
that's
that are doing fantastically now.
Eric Dyer, Dele Alli, these guys.
Absolutely,
I just find it a
absolutely.
bit baffling you would say a line like that when you've seen the progress of these young players.
And I think if he'd come out and said it another way, such as, as we just said, we need to sign established, players of brilliance, that's fair enough. But to effectively insult a few of your teammates, I thought was strange. And I'm not going to defend Danny Rose here, but we haven't heard the transcript of the interview. The quotes haven't been refuted, but Sun journalists are very, very good at what they do. They're very, very good at getting the line they want to get. So you don't know how much of a maggot was put on a fishing line, and they got the line that really they sort of almost planted. So without hearing the transcript, I think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt to a small degree.
Yeah, I think what has to be said as well, the interview was done, dare I say, a couple of weeks beforehand, and it was the Sun that decided to actually share that interview when they did. I want to bring it back round to you, Alan, and ask you, do you think Spurs, the Pochettino has used this line before, that he feels the club are progressing quicker than what they thought they would be, and they're actually a couple of years ahead of schedule, and that's why maybe the wage structure isn't maybe what it should be in reflection, because Spurs, we are challenging for the title effectively for the last 2 years. The wages aren't a reflection of Tottenham challenging for a title in terms of the players. Can you understand that?
I've got mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, I can understand what Levy is doing. I suspect it's less about Spurs on the pitch being ahead of the plan, and much more about Levy wanting to keep a sensible rein on spending. I'm going to call it a tight rein because it isn't. We're spending around 50% of our income on wages, and on the surface that's a reasonable amount. What troubles me about this is that we could be on the edge of something very big here. It is not an exaggeration to say that this is the best Spurs team, certainly since the 80s.
Yeah.
And as a team, as opposed to individuals, as a team, you could go back almost to the 60s. They are that good, and they've got more to give because they are a relatively young team. They are going to get better. So is this the moment? Is this the moment where you don't have to do anything silly in terms of spending money willy-nilly? I'm not interested in that in the slightest. But you extend the limits, the self-imposed limits on the salaries in order to attract a wider range of players. So we're never going to attract the players that want 200, 300, 400 grand a week. They're way out of reach. We could, by raising the wages, the top whack of the wages to even 120, 130 a week, get some of those players that Pochettino would surely be interested in, that would make a difference. At the moment, players would be saying, well, look, hang on a minute, why should I go to Tottenham if I can get some more money elsewhere? And I think that Levy has not got this quite right. I think that he, for the medium and long-term future of the club, I think that he could extend that top whack of the salary without breaking the bank and without jeopardising the build for the stadium. The reason being that the income that we're getting and will get in the future is going to radically increase, especially if we're successful with his investments on the pitch.
Fair enough. And coming over to you, Dec, what I will want to say is just on the finalisation of Danny Rose's quotes, he does say that from his perspective, should get what he's worth. Do you think other members of the squad feel the same?
Yeah, I'm not sure if all the players feel the same. It clearly, if one player is sort of voicing his opinions on it, does it really reflect the whole squad? I don't think so. I think each player's probably got different sort of demands, and some will probably want to be paid more, and some of them be quite happy to be right where they are right now. I think some players, well, are even more concerned about playing time and just sort of money. But
yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, just coming over to you, Ben, just to kind of wrap this up. I mean, that performance against Newcastle certainly didn't look like a squad, from my perspective, that was on the imminent player revolt. I mean, it looked like the squad was pretty united, pretty together. It was, like I say, a decent professional performance. Should we not be too alarmed?
I think you're right. I think it was a very decent, very professional, very mature performance against a team that battled hard, but eventually the quality shone through. But beating a newly promoted championship side is going to be no more reflective of the season than United's mauling against West Ham was. Spurs will hopefully, if they've progressed out the Champions League group stages and have a couple of good cup runs, will hopefully play 60 odd games this year. As it stands, I don't believe you have the squad to play 60 games competitively. So I don't think it's doom and gloom by any stretch of the imagination. I think that Tottenham's first 11 is extremely strong, and I think Alan said about they were on the edge of something special, and I think you are. I think you are potentially on the edge of something very, very special if the right couple of players are added. But you could also be on the edge of this potential great group not being together in 18 months' time. So it's going to be up to Levy to a large degree to decide which edge you fall off.
Yeah. And like I say, I think that is a great way to end that debate. So guys, what we're going to do, we're going to go for a very quick break, and after we're going to take a selection of your questions for tonight's panel.
Hello and welcome to Loan Watch, a weekly update on our players out on loan. Only 2 of our loanees have been in action since I last spoke to you. Josh Onomah made his first start for Aston Villa, playing the full 90 minutes of their 2-1 victory over Colchester United in the first round of the League Cup. Josh also started for Villa against Cardiff City at the weekend, playing 77 minutes of their 3-0 defeat. Conor Ogilvie also featured twice for his loan side this week, playing the full game on both occasions as Gillingham lost 2-0 away to Reading in the first round of the League Cup and 1-0 at home to Bradford City in League One. That's it for this week's edition of Loan Watch. Speak to you soon, and come on you Spurs.
Hello guys, welcome back to the E-Spurs Podcast. As always, we ask you to get your questions into us on a weekly basis. You can do that by tweeting our Twitter account of @the_Spurs and leaving your question with the hashtag eSpursPod. Guys, we've got a host of questions to get through. We're going to come first round to you, Declan. We've got a question here from Dave Ellis at fullback03, who says, how have a club like Everton managed to get their deals done and in place so early with brand new owners, and we're still plodding along as ever?
I think it depends on your targets. Obviously, Sigurdsson is a player literally just signed before coming on this show, and he's a player, obviously an ex-Spurs player that we let go. And a lot of fans rated Sigurdsson, and they were quite sad to see him leave. But obviously, Tottenham probably had a chance to get in there if they wanted to sign him. So I think the key thing is the targets you're going for. Pochettino obviously wants a certain kind of player with his ideology in mind. So if a player doesn't fit the squad, then why are you bringing him into the club for? We've already learnt that for the past, well, God knows how many transfer windows. We've brought in a load of players for the sake of buying in players, and very few have actually succeeded. So actually I think it's best to perhaps wait out. But yeah, we do need to get... I understand the frustration of some fans that they want to get some deals done, but they've got to be the right deals. There's no point bringing in, any old player.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that's why we're seeing maybe Spurs not jump into the market as we should have done maybe at the beginning of the summer, which some fans really want us to do. It seems to be a case where we are taking our time. As frustrating as that is, believe me, no one wants to see Spurs have to drag out, the transfer window as long as we have. But it seems clear that we are, like I say, very, very patiently waiting for the right move. Coming over to you, Alan, would you go along with that? Do you agree? Should we have had players in early? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Everton, to me, they don't seem to have unduly quibbled either about the fee or the salaries. So, for example, Sigurdsson is a player that many people would like to see at Tottenham. Equally, many people would say, look, actually, he wasn't quite good enough when he was here. That's why he left. So why should we not only have him back, but why should we pay 45 million for him? Also, I suspect it comes back to the salaries. There's been a lot of discussion, of course, about us buying Ross Barkley. Levy's quibbling with the fee. But don't forget, I mean, Barkley, as I understand it, is paid more at Everton than he would get at Tottenham now, and could easily be offered a lot more money by another club that might be interested in him. And I also think that any player who's potentially interested at coming to Tottenham might hang on a bit to see if there's another offer around from another club who are going to pay substantially more money. So I think those things are holding us back in the market. That said, as I was saying earlier, I think Spurs could, and in a couple of cases should, have been more decisive to get players in earlier.
Ben, do you want to add anything on that one?
No, I think that's a good point that Alan just made, that perhaps some of the players that are on Spurs' radar are aware of, or their agents, advisors are certainly aware of the wage restrictions, and are saying, well, actually, let's see if City come first. Let's see if Chelsea come first, because they know in some cases it can be near on double.
What we've got is we are so close, and what we've said on this podcast, numerous times, and tonight we've said it as well, we are so close to something so special at Tottenham, and it is literally what we say, 2-3 players at best from being such a special team and being able for me to challenge anyone, irregardless of the competition and irregardless of the team. I mean, we are so close, so fingers crossed we do see that investment, although I can understand the frustration. We're going to bring the next question of the night over to you, Ben. We've got a question here from Paolo Ruantasca, who says, do Tottenham need pacey forwards to compete for the title?
I think football relies on pace now. So I think, yes, certainly some pace needs to be injected to the side. I'm not sure it needs to be an out-and-out striker, an out-and-out centre-forward. But I think, yes, there is room for pace. It was mentioned earlier, look, Tottenham have got to be realistic, and the players, that are going to be asking for £250,000, £300,000 a week, there's no point even opening discussions because they're not on the radar. But let's look at Mahrez. We know he's proven Premiership quality. We know he likes to run with the ball. We know he's got pace. We know he can score goals. He was Leicester's best player in the Champions League last season, and we know that he's gettable for 40, 45 million. That, to me, is the one that Spurs should be saying, thank you very much, Mr. Mahrez. Leicester, here's 45 million. Mr. Mahrez, here's 120 grand a week. That, to me, is the business Spurs should and need to be doing.
Alan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. I think that Levy has got to be more decisive. He can't carry on pretending that the market runs under his competitive rules. They're playing a different game, and we're going to get left behind if we're not too careful.
Yeah, I mean, my only argument with regards to Mahrez is, from my perspective, that there's a player there that potentially, dare I say, looked like he downed tools at the start of the following season when they won the title. And you just maybe question whether Pochettino has maybe looked at that and thought, you know what, I'm not too sure if I fancy it. But at the same time, guys, we've been linked with players such as, like I say, dare I say, this right-back Serge Aurier, who has got a reputation for being a bit off the wall, dare I say. So, I mean, and the thing what I will say about Tottenham is, and Pochettino, is that at some point he is going to have to put himself in a situation where, if we want these top players, coming over to you, Dec, he's going to have to start wanting to manage players with an ego. Would you agree with that? We can't keep playing it safe with players that you know are always going to be like a nodding dog under your stewardship. You're going to have to sometimes step out of that and be a bit more kind of open to wanting to challenge yourself against players that have got that bit more of a, like I say, that ego.
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends on just how sort of bad or uncontrollable that ego is. Because if you take Dele Alli, for instance, I think even when he was playing for MK Dons in League One, he had sort of a little bit of a reputation there for his bit of a fiery temper. But I think he can be controlled. He can be this ego. He can be reined in. But I think it depends on certain players. I mean, recent example, if you look at the sort of likes of Adebayor, players like that, these are players that I don't think they can be reined in. They are more sort of self-serving, independent players. They're very interested in themselves. Whereas I think like Dele Alli, there's many players like him too that are okay. They have their own personalities, obviously, and not always going to be yes men. But I think you do need that little bit of spark or a little bit of individuality. I think you do need that in the squad somewhere, but not too much.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to bring our next question of the night to you, Alan. We've been asked here on the back of KWP's debut against Newcastle, would you still like Spurs to go and get another right back?
Yes, in a word. I wouldn't have sold Walker. I know that's old news by now, but he was playing so well, and I think it is a big loss there. I'm optimistic about what Trippier can achieve, but I think we need more cover than is provided by a young man who is just making his debut. That said, I hope there are spaces for him to play. If we do get another player, that there will be a few spaces for him to play in upcoming games. But look, coming back to this point about if we really want to achieve something, this could be our moment. And for the sake of a signing or two, I really don't want to see us waste it.
No. And that's the most important thing, is we have to, like I say, keep reiterating that point that it's in no way negative, this. Every Spurs fan feels that we are on the cusp of something so special. It's such a united squad, irregardless of the comments we've seen last week. We've seen that on the pitch, the way, like I say, the squad pulled together against Newcastle. There was certainly no, like I say, revolt being shown there. Everybody was pulling in the right direction. So it is now just a case of making sure these next couple of weeks, as the window does come to a close, that we just make sure we get the right signings in that do fit the profile and that improves the club. I think that's what we all want to see. We want to see that improvement. That's the most important thing. Players that are going to take us forward, not players that we're just going to bring in willy-nilly just to kind of, add numbers to the squad. It has to be the right players. Next question of the night, we're going to come across to you, Ben. This is from Bradley Grant at Mr. Bradley Grant, who says, everyone says we have the best 11, but not as good a squad as City and United's. Why should there be a set 11, given how many games we have to play?
That's the excellent point. I think, I said earlier, hopefully Spurs with 38 Premier League games, hopefully, last 16, last 8 at the Champions League, and good cup runs, it's going to be 60 games. At the intensity the games are played these days, Harry Kane, Dele Alli, they can't play 60 games. This isn't 1991 where the 11s didn't change from week in, week out. You cannot win trophies with a very good first 11. Spurs do need to add strength to depth. I think probably everyone on the show tonight is singing off the same song sheet there by the sounds of it. And I think it's an excellent question. And I think I don't look at football now as a first 11. Sure, if you've got everyone fit and you're playing Barcelona, you put your best 11 players out there. But as a whole, football has to be so much more than that.
And we're going to look towards Wembley now. We've got a question here from Ben Bowman, coming over to you, Dec, who says, should the club look to promote a section of Wembley where fans who want to contribute to the atmosphere should sit like last year's Champions League matches?
Yeah, I think, remembering a podcast I did with Kat a while ago, I'm pretty sure she did make some points about, or at least there's going to be organisation pertaining to that. I think there is going to be some kind of, singing block or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think it is a good idea because Wembley is a big stadium and it can have a bit of a dead atmosphere at times. So I think, people want to make noise, sing, put them together, and then whatever happens, you can have a good time in your block rather than having everyone sort of scattered out throughout the stadium, trying to start a song when the 20 people around you are not really up for that kind of thing. So I think it is good to get people together, group them together, and they can enjoy themselves and hopefully make a bit of atmosphere too.
Yeah, I mean, looking forward towards the Chelsea game. Coming over to you, Alan. I mean, it's hard to kind of decipher at the moment what kind of atmosphere we're going to get, because obviously the Juventus game, that was obviously a clear boycott from the fans because of the actual ticketing prices. We should say not enforced by Tottenham, enforced by a third party. So that wasn't the greatest display of how it's going to look like in terms of the game against Chelsea. But our thoughts going into that, what is your feelings about that Chelsea game?
Well, I'm looking forward to it first and foremost. It'll be a big game. There'll be a lot of people there. There'll be a good atmosphere. It won't be the same sort of atmosphere at White Hart Lane because you had that almost unique setup now, almost unique as it was when we played our last season there, when we were so close to the pitch and that you could really get through to the players. It's not quite the same at Wembley, but we can make a lot of noise. And I've not seen the figures for tickets sold, but there's going to be 70,000 people there, I should think. And
Fingers crossed.
I think that'll be good. And of course, against opponents where we desperately want to win, the game with against Chelsea, don't need me to say that this is the game that seems to have more edge these days. There's a bitterness about the rivalry that supersedes the Arsenal rivalry. They're the old enemies. There's a nastiness, to me, there is, about the Chelsea game, and I think the players feel that as well, especially after the 2-2 the season before last. The players are going to be as up for it as the fans, and I'd like to see us go out and take charge of that game, which perhaps we didn't do in the semi-final last time, last season, where we went out with the right attitude but made catastrophic early errors, gave the ball away, and we were always chasing the game. Cut that out, take the game to them, and we're going to have a real game.
Yeah, I agree. And coming over to you, Ben, I mean, the likes of Cahill, Pedro, Costa and Fabregas are apparently all missing from that squad. Bakayoko and Hazard are back in training reportedly. But, I mean, you do feel that this is a game, Tottenham, if they turn up with the right mentality and everybody is singing off the same hymn sheet, we can really give Chelsea a right go, can't we?
No, absolutely. And I think the game this weekend is actually more important than perhaps, what should be title rivals playing each other and the points on the table. From a Spurs perspective, I think it's important to get something, and especially the win, to almost break any sort of suggestion there might be a Wembley hoodoo. You go out there, you beat the champions, first game of the season at Wembley, and it's what Wembley hoodoo? What are you talking about? Whereas if you were to lose there, it could create this. Oh my goodness, this isn't a lane. It's going to be a long season. So I think it's about Spurs putting down their marker at their new home, or their temporary new home rather, and saying, look, we can play here, we can win here, we can put the performances of last season here. But in terms of the way that the teams are lining up, Chelsea have got injuries, suspensions. There's a mini crisis there. There's rumours of Conte losing the dressing room, and don't know what country Diego Costa's in today, but it's all going there at the moment. So it's a good time to be playing them. And to be honest, I think the performance is almost irrelevant. If it's a 89th minute winner off Harry Kane's arse, I don't think it really matters. You've got to go down there, put a marker and saying we can win at Wembley.
Yeah, and bringing around to you, Dec, talking about Harry Kane, obviously this looming record is holding over him that he hasn't scored in August. He was so close against Newcastle to scoring in August. Rob Elliott denied him, like I say, by the fingertips. I'm sure the goals are going to come for Harry Kane, but just in general, what's your thoughts going into the game, Dec? I mean, we should be full of positives, shouldn't we? It's a Chelsea team that we played very well against in that semi-final, and I just feel, go out there, play your best, and there's no reason why Tottenham can't come away with a positive result.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Touching on what Alan said earlier, even in the semi-final, we didn't necessarily play badly. I thought that we were much the better team, but we did make the fatal errors, and that's what cost us in the end. So if we do, like you say, go out there, give it our all, make a good start, and just make sure that the first 15-20 minutes that we don't concede, but also that we actually take it to them and try and get the first goal. I think the first goal could be very crucial, but as we saw in the semi-final, either team come back. We got back to 2-2, didn't we? So really it's a massive game. But I think a really key part is that this lack of transfer activity might actually work in our favour, because the whole 11 is going to be, or the whole squad is going to be together.
Yeah.
Whereas Chelsea, like you say, they've got this mini crisis going on. It's all sort of maybe a bit fragmented, but I feel that more than ever we've got a manager who's now been with us 4 seasons, I think, and then many of the squad members have been together at least 2 seasons now. So this is the one game that I feel we should really give them a good go.
Yeah, and coming back around to you, Alan, you just feel Pochettino maybe had to galvanise his squad, just like Declan's touched upon there, because the media do seem to have, and I'm not just saying because I'm a Tottenham fan, I do feel like it's an agenda towards Spurs to kind of poke the stick. But, Spurs, I feel we should be lauded for trying to do things the right way. We are trying to bring through the youth. We aren't recklessly spending like a lot of the clubs seem to be doing at the top. We're not everybody's choice. We haven't got like a Klopp in charge or a Guardiola, maybe the glamour, what they want. But you just feel, like I say, we are so close to something so special here that Pochettino could use this to really galvanise the squad to say, come on, forget about what everyone else is saying. Let's go out and do our job and continue, the great work we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting what Ben and Declan were saying about the contrast of the attitudes of the two different managers at the moment. That Conte, having won the league with a good team and playing really good football, suddenly seems obsessed that his team is not good enough.
Yeah.
He's got rid of a player like Matic and Costa. He's got his own reasons for that. If I were a Chelsea fan, I'd say they better be bloody good reasons if he's getting rid of players of that quality and not really replacing them. Certainly not replacing Matic at the moment. And he seems worried and on edge. Did I read they've only spent £129 million in the last year, and he's still fretting. That must get through to his team, whereas Pochettino is more assured than ever. Pochettino says, look, I'm just going to, I've got a good young fullback, I'm going to put him in partly because he's good, but partly because I back myself. I know what he can do and I know what this team can do. And it's a settled team, and that familiarity is going to count for a lot if, as I say, we really take the game to Chelsea, surprise them early on and keep putting that pressure on.
I agree. And fingers crossed, coming back round to you, Ben, I mean, we're hopefully going to have a fully fit Heung-min Son available and Victor Wanyama. Tell us from your perspective, from a non-biased view, how do you see Spurs matching up to Chelsea? Is there much between these two squads?
I don't think there is that much, actually. Certainly not when you consider the money spent. I don't think there is much. Chelsea obviously had a horrendous result at the weekend. I think Spurs are actually the stronger team at the moment, certainly with the players that are going to be available, because I don't think Hazard's going to be back. Costa's gone AWOL. Morata, if you look historically, he's technically very good, but he's never had a great goal ratio. So I actually think Tottenham are going to have the stronger 11 on the field this weekend. And I think they'll be the better team, and they'll certainly be the more united team. I think it will be a game that is possibly, because there's nerves on both sides, I think it might be a little bit scrappy. I'm not sure it will quite be a game of the quality that perhaps there should be with the players on view, but I think Tottenham will nick it.
That's good to hear. And coming back to you, Declan, you want to give us a prediction?
I think 2-1 Tottenham.
2-1 Tottenham, okay. And Alan, what do you think?
1-0 Tottenham.
1-0 Tottenham. Okay, I'm going to join you, Alan. I think it's going to be one of those games where I can see it being really tight, but I'm going to go with Harry Kane to break this August duck. I really, really am. I think, like I say, it's long overdue, this goal in August. He was so close to it, like I said, against Newcastle. I'm sure it's going to come. Guys, we're going to do a final look at the transfer window tonight. We've tried our best to avoid talking about actual players that we're looking at, but let's talk about them. Coming over to you, Ben, obviously being, I say, connected to football, who would you put your neck out there and say Spurs, nailed on to sign towards the end of the window?
Spurs have obviously been speaking to Sanchez this last few days. It's perhaps not being wrapped up as quickly as Spurs fans might want. And there's been some reports in this morning's papers that now you're not the only club interested. So no, I wouldn't like to say who you would sign, but I'll go back to Mahrez. I think that's who you should. I also think Barkley would improve the squad, and I think despite him being a bit of a spice boy at times, Sergio Aurier is a fantastic right back. And I think if you were talking about a player who had a great attitude, you'd probably be talking about a right back that would be going for sort of 40-45 million. If any club can nick him for 15 million and he has the right attitude, it could be the best bit of business of the summer. So I think there are a few options. It's just now up to that man Levy.
Okay. And coming over to you, Dec, is there any players out there you would like to see who have been linked with Spurs do sign?
I think Sanchez is probably the one that seems the most promising out of them all. He's a young player. He's from Ajax. We've had quite a lot of success from Ajax so far, so I think that's a good sign to get if we can. As Ben mentioned, Mahrez, he's definitely got the talent. He's another one of those players that has that little bit of skill, and he brings something exciting to the club, so I think that would be a good transfer. But apart from that, I think obviously Barkley as well. He would improve the squad. Would he improve the first team? Would he get in there in front of the current midfielders? It'd be a struggle to say he would, but he would definitely improve the squad overall, and he would bring something off the bench. So yeah, that'd be my top three. Okay,
fair enough. And finishing up with you, Alan, other players we've been linked with, who would you like to see Tottenham sign by the end of August?
Well, it's more about players or a position that we've not been linked with, which is that there's not been a lot of talk about us buying another striker. Now, that could mean that Pochettino is happy with Janssen, and I can see that. But he is a very different type of player from Kane, and I think that we need proper cover up front for Harry Kane. So if Pochettino feels that Janssen can do that, with of course Son able to play up there in a different role, fine. I'm a bit worried that we've not had been linked seriously with a striker. I'm very sceptical about Aurier and his background. I take Ben's point that he could turn out to be a bargain. I'm not keen on Tottenham buying a bloke that's been done for assaulting a police officer and has made homophobic remarks and been rude to members of his own squad. And of course we're in this bizarre position where as it stands, he may well not be able to enter the country. So it's a new first for Spurs, buying a player who can't actually come into the country. I don't think that we should be considering players with that sort of character.
Okay. Who would you, from your perspective, just pushing you, Alan, who do you think are the right players to bring in this team? You mentioned another striker there. Are Spurs lacking, like I say, another creative midfielder in your opinion?
I think that again, that would be a position where I'd like to see us strengthen. Isco was probably a dream, wasn't it? Was he really ever going to come? But a player like that who could be creative. I think Sanchez is a very promising player. from what little I've seen of him, and he could really fit the mould because we need some more cover there. And we need somebody who can inject some pace up front, certainly as an option. And I can't remember who else have we been linked with in that respect apart from Mahrez.
So I think there's so many, but this Juan Foyth, the guy from Argentina, the young centre back.
He's a centre half, isn't he?
Centre half.
Yeah, sorry. I'm being vague. There's a forward player whose name escapes me.
We've got Pep Diop, possibly. Was it Pep Diop? This Ivory Coast player. I mean, there is so many. It's like I say, it's so hard to kind of decipher who are the primary targets. But I mean, what I will say on Sanchez is, from my perspective, is I see a player there that for me would most certainly kind of compensate the loss of Walker's pace, and would be a player there for me that would slot in a back three alongside Toby and Jan. I mean, Ben, just final thoughts for you on Sanchez. I don't know if you've seen much of him, but he seems the kind of player that Tottenham, that is the right kind of player we should be targeting if we are going to look to cover Walker's loss of pace in the squad.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be brutal as I haven't seen much of him. I know when from a Twitter perspective, when anyone's ever linked with a player from the Dutch league or Belgium league or Danish league, all of a sudden everyone's experts. All I can ever do is read reports of the journalists from that country that I respect and know talk sense, and that's what I've done with Sanchez. And the reports are glowing from very well respected Dutch journalists. So that's really all I can go on the back of. But yeah, he seems to be very, very well respected. Saw him in a couple of games in the Europa League last season. I thought he looked very good. So all signs point to him being a very promising and good signing.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. We don't want to kind of force it too much, but hopefully, like I say, that deal does get done. It seems at the moment that it's firmly poised in the balance either way in typical Tottenham fashion. Alan, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been a real pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And of course, Ricky, don't forget my book.
Please, go for it.
With Martin Cloak, People's History of Tottenham Hotspur, which is a book about the history of support and supporters. Spurs fans have been pioneers, loyal, passionate, and there's so much interesting stuff in there, lots of interesting stories. It's the first book that's ever been written, a proper history about football fans of a particular club, and it is available at all good bookshops.
Lovely. And Alan, just sticking with you for a second, if people want to hear your views on your blog, can you tell them how they can find that?
It's www.tottenhamonmymind.com. It's an old-fashioned blog. It's just me. There's nothing else. There's no adverts. It's been going for 8 or 9 years now. Tottenham on my mind, because it is a sad old man obsessed with a football club.
Yeah, at least you're not the only one, Alan. At least you're not the only one. Declan, thank you so much also for coming on tonight. It's been a real pleasure having you back on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been great to talk Spurs again. Yeah.
Lovely. And Dec, also for yourself, if people want to see your content, how can they find your content?
Yeah, I'm the Tottenham team manager for Last Word on Sports. So if you want to head over to the Tottenham page, we've just recently opened a page all dedicated to Tottenham analysis, transfers, news, all of it. You can go to www.lastwordonfootball.com/clubs/Tottenham. And you go there and you'll find everything you need.
Lovely, thank you so much. And Ben, last but not least, thank you so much for your appearance tonight. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks, Ricky.
Honestly, really great. Guys, I have to say thank you so much for all of your questions tonight. I'm sorry we haven't got through them all. Fingers crossed Jason will be in touch and will be answering your questions, which will be uploaded to the E-Spurs website. But as always, as we go into Chelsea this coming Sunday, fingers crossed for another win. Come on, you Spurs!
Give it up, we're gonna bring the cup back home to White Hart.